Okay, so depending on where you live, what you watch, and what your politics are, you have a totally different view of life in America. And it's not just about being red versus blue. I'll explain. It's Rob Nelson Live. Hey, I'm Rob Nelson. I used to host a show on Fox, and now I do a digital live stream called that Rob Nelson Live. And my whole mission is to figure out how in this time of division we can find common ground.
Speech, and they're not allowed to do that anymore.
I understand what it's up.
They be focused on rebuilding California.
Oh, it's so true. Come on. This is where this gets real. He says you're heading. I wouldn't want to be black and driving in a car. Right. Point there, right? Some of what's in this music, you can't sanitize it. Okay, everybody. Hey, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on whatever streaming platforms you guys are on, from Reddit to YouTube to Facebook to Twitter and TikTok and Twitch and you name it. Coming at you from my virtual studio here in beautiful, sunny Florida, Sunshine State, the Free State. We'll get into that. And as always, love all your feedback, interaction, engagement. I don't get to all your comments, but we get to see them on the screen and you get to see them. And I love the engagement during the show, before the show, after the show. Okay, let's jump right in. I really believe that we are living in two Americas. And I don't just mean the classic two Americas, the rich and the poor. There's that one. That divide's getting larger and larger. And I don't just mean the red and blue America. We know that one's out there. Our politics have divided us so far. We are so far apart that literally we see things in completely different lights depending on our politics and depending on whether we listen to MSNBC or Fox News or what we read, who we listen to, who our friend groups are. But I think we're divided in an even more complex way when it comes to the COVID pandemic, both to the pandemic all the way through it for the last year and to how we look at the recovery process coming out of the pandemic. In Brazil right now, and I don't care what you look at, what news source you look at, Brazil's COVID epidemic is just blasted off the charts. I mean, they literally are, everything was fine. I'm sorry, Brazil's is blasted off the charts. India, I was meant to say. India literally is catching up with the U.S. They have almost 500,000 people, 400,000 people have died. And it's mostly been, the massive number has been in the last month and a half. They're up to 500,000 cases a day, whereas much of the world was starting to get this under control. It's just blowing up in India. And, you see stories, you see pictures, they got funeral pyres burning in the middle of the streets. The hospitals are overcrowded. People aren't even in the hospitals. They're lying on the streets. I mean, it's dystopian. It's ugly. And when you watch it, you might think, oh my God, COVID's not gone. We're going to have another wave here. The new variants are going to wipe us off the map. They're not going to wipe us off the map here. And it's sad for India. But the problem in India is their healthcare system. They can't support what's happening. Their doctors are saying people are dying not because they're getting so sick, because we can't give them basic medical care. They're literally dropping everywhere. But my point in bringing up India is if you were to watch it, you might justifiably think, are we next? Are we next? I mean, everything I read, everything I see tells me that now young people are the ones going to the hospitals, right? It used to be the old people. Now it's young people. Every single stat shows that the majority of people going in the hospital for COVID in the U.S. now are younger. I mean, they're certainly under 65, under 50, and even 30-year-olds going into the hospital. What the numbers don't show you is that they aren't dying. And in fact, our hospitals aren't overcrowded, right? I mean, people are going to the hospital who are younger because the old people are all vaccinated and because a lot of old people died. We did a good job finally protecting the vulnerable population. But young people, of course, are going to be going to the hospital because we're opening back up. So who's going to get sick and going to go to the hospital? Young people. But we're not overwhelming our hospitals. We're not overcrowding them. We're not seeing a rise in the number of young people dying. And my point in this is that when you read, depending on where you read, you might think we are. I mean, every story I read that shows the numbers of young people going up says, X number of hospital is young people versus old people. And I keep digging, but how many? How many? Because in reality, we're not seeing a flood on our healthcare system. But that's the two sides that we look at. And this two-sided thing, and I know I'm all about two sides and trying to find a center side, and we're going to get into some of that later on. But I think around COVID, it's really fascinating because I've been in both I've been in both sides. I've been in California and Florida, back and forth, back and forth. And it's like living in two realities. I'm not kidding you. The same pandemic, actually pretty similar numbers, as I've said before. I mean, California is twice the population, so the numbers should be higher, but everything's flattening out to where it's about double. The infection rate's about the same. The fatality rates proportionally are about the same. Hospitalizations, relatively the same. But it's night and day. When you're in California, it's like literally, it's like you're in pandemic hell. I mean, everybody's scared. Everyone's wearing their masks. Everyone's afraid to get near you. Everybody's guarded. Nobody wants you to touch anything. You walk into a 7-Eleven with a cup. They're like, take the cup back outside. I want to say COVID doesn't spread on surfaces. Dr. Fauci told you that. Doesn't spread on my cup. When I'm in Florida, everything's wide open. People are out, relaxed, doing whatever, chilling. Some people have masks. Some people don't. It's a superficial example, but it's night and day. The tension levels, everything, night and day. It's like two completely different worlds. And that's what we see when it comes down to like masking and vaccinating and the whole thing. It's like there's science, as I've said before, science isn't one thing, but there clearly is science. And there's certainly debate about what is what, but certain things are kind of basic. There's certain things that really aren't that debatable. Fort Walton Bleach, the minute you saw COVID as bad, at least here in Orange, Florida, you are part of a Soros conspiracy. Not sure what that means. So I'm just going to skip past it. So I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about masking first, okay, and how we handle this whole masking thing. And again, I want to be sensitive to the fact that I get it. We just went through a pandemic, and I get there are no simple answers. And I get that nothing in this pandemic mess is black and white. It's completely every step has been uncertain from the beginning, no matter what party you are in, no matter what your politics, no matter whether you're a Republican or Democrat, no matter who the governor or the senator or the president is, it's been a chaotic process of trying to figure out what to do next. But one thing we do know is we started to make progress in understanding mask stuff. And Joe Biden continues to wear a mask outdoors. He's fully vaccinated and wears a mask outdoors. And he got questioned on it. The CDC came out with new guidance saying if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask outdoors. It's not necessary. If you are vaccinated, there's no reason for you to be wearing a mask outdoors. That's the CDC. That's Dr. Walensky, the head of the CDC. That's not Trump's people. And yet Biden wears a mask outdoors. And when asked about it, his team said, we're extra cautious with the president. We're extra cautious with the president. I'm thinking, oh, yeah, extra cautious. Yeah, I know he's older. You don't want to get sick, but he's not going to get sick. He's vaccinated. So he doesn't need to wear a mask. Biden had the more honest answer. He didn't say, I got to be extra cautious because I'm president. He said, it's the patriotic thing to do. You wear a mask. It's virtue signaling, I guess, but it's not accidental. He's saying you wear a mask. I wear a mask because it's patriotic to wear a mask. And I want to tell everyone to wear a mask, which I get. You're trying to get a psychology of people to behave a certain way. But it's a little odd when people are confused about what they can and can't do, and the CDC is telling you you don't need to wear masks outside, and the president's fully vaccinated wearing a mask outside, which just sends two separate signals. One side going, it's all a joke, it's all fake, which it isn't. The other side going, see, need to wear a mask outside. So if you're running through the woods, put your mask on. Let's play this clip. Crafty, can we play this clip of the CDC talking about masking?
There are many situations where fully vaccinated people do not need to wear a mask, particularly if they are outdoors, as shown by the graphic on the right. If you are fully vaccinated and want to attend a small outdoor gathering with people who are vaccinated and unvaccinated, or dine at an outdoor restaurant with friends from multiple households, the science shows if you are vaccinated, you can do so safely unmasked.
Okay, why am I bringing this up? I'm not trying to pick a partisan side here. That's Dr. Walensky, the head of the CDC, a Biden person, saying you are fine, 100% fine, even with unvaccinated people. If you're vaccinated and outside, you don't need a mask. That's the science. She says the science shows. So why do people keep wearing them? Why does Biden keep wearing a mask outside? Why do they insist on signaling this mask thing? Because they want people to wear masks. But it's not working. It's only making people who think they need to wear masks more determined to wear them, and making people who think masks are a joke, which they're not, say, I'm never going to wear a mask. I'm going to throw and burn my mask. DC did the same thing. The mayor of DC outlawed dancing at weddings. And they just launched these new regulations in accordance with the CDC saying, if you're outdoors, you don't need to wear a mask. If you're indoors and everybody's vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. And then they changed it, politically took a step back and changed the regulations again. Again, sending confusion to people who don't know what they should be doing. And at the same time, sending a signal to, again, both sides that it's hyper political. We're supposed to be following the science. And I get for a year, people on the left kept saying people on the right aren't following the science. People on the right were like, you're not following the science. But truthfully, people on the left may have had the advantage early on. But now the science is clear. So if you're on the left and you're not following the science that your own people are telling you, it makes everybody go, the whole thing's a joke. Let me just quickly say, Dr. Walensky has said, if you're outdoors, it's safe with the exception of crowded settings. Dr. Fauci said last week, it's common sense. Outdoor risk is, quote, really, really quite low. Dr. Jonathan Reiner, a well-known Georgetown professor, a liberal, anti-Trumper, and very well-known cardiac surgeon and professor, said the CDC has been too cautious. He says, I get why. And for the last year, the first 12 months, masks I thought were essential for everything and everyone. He said, but now someone who is vaxxed is immune from COVID-19. They no longer need a mask in public or indoors. He's like, you're immune if you're vaccinated. But people don't even know. They're like, am I? I mean, I'm supposed to be. One side's telling me if I'm vaccinated, I should be fine. The other side's telling me if I'm vaccinated, I should socially distance, wear a mask, because maybe I'll still get it. The confusion drives people nuts, is what it does. Yeah, Fort Walton Bleach. Yes, I get it. That it's good to show, yes, funny, the joke about Lincoln. If he can do it, we all can. I get it. I said, I get that it's virtue signaling with a purpose, but it's having a negative impact because it's simply enforcing the divide where people go, none of this is based on science, when some of it is. It's all just based on what message you want to send. It's all based on your politics. If it was based on science, you'd go, I'm vaccinated, I don't need a mask outside. Our medical people have told us that. My own medical people have told me that. Dr. Fauci, Dr. Reiner, Dr. Walensky have said that. I don't need to do it. Neither do you. That would be honest. But again, I want to be clear. It goes both ways. On the other side of it, look, in Florida, the governor just signed a law basically allowing him to override any local mandates, period. All of them. All emergency measures gone. Nobody can have a mask mandate. Nobody can have capacity limits. Nobody cannot open their business. Schools have to be open. I get it. He's trying to take power back, but that just creates a push the other way. Now, I happen to be more in favor of the open approach, so I'm not critical of that, but that's where I stand on it. But I understand why people like the mayor of Miami, who are basically saying you're spiking the ball at the 10-yard line. We're getting hit down here. Don't tell us we can't have mandates if we want them. Don't tell us what we can't do locally, right? And the St. Pete mayor says he doesn't care about health. He just cares about power, to which I say they all just care about power. I mean, the truth is, both sides are playing this game. DeSantis said, if you don't believe in vaccines, then you're anti-science. And it's true. He's sort of point is like, if you're still policing people at this point, you're basically saying vaccines don't work. You're basically saying the science isn't accurate. You're basically ignoring the data. And to a certain extent, he's 100% right. If you want to be completely honest about it. So I guess here's where I go with this, because I really thought about this, and this isn't so much a policy episode for me. It's a psychology episode for me. I think we've got two sides that started playing a game politically early on, and it caused severe harm to this country. Trump played the game 100%. Trump was like, it's my economy. Things are going to be good. The COVID's a joke. Instead of going, COVID's not a joke. COVID's a very serious, real threat to this country, and we have to take it seriously, and I'll get my economy back on the ground later. He played that game the whole time through, and I criticized him for it the whole time, right down to when he got COVID and just kind of flipped everybody off and said, see, no big deal, instead of being like, look, a learning moment here for everybody. But the left played the same game. Governor Newsom in California played the same game. There's a reason why Governor Newsom went to that dinner at the French Laundry restaurant, right? He went because he didn't feel scared. I know he's defended it and said, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have gone. I broke my own rules. We all make mistakes. That's not the point to me. It's not even the hypocrisy, which bothers me. The underlying point to me is he would never have gone to a dinner with 16 people, not from his own household, sitting close with not a mask in sight in a basically indoor setting. But outdoor dining was not okay that close either. If he thought he was going to get COVID and die, or if he thought he was going to get COVID and give it to his wife, or he thought he was going to get COVID and make all his whole staff sick, he never would have done it. He'd be like, no way am I taking this chance. He did it because he wasn't that scared, because he figured I'll be okay. And so again, these rules became subjective. And my point, if you don't follow the rules you set, you're either not following because you think they don't apply to you. Why don't you think they apply to you is one thing, but you're also not following because you don't think you have to. At the end of the day, if you think your life's at stake, I promise you, if that was Ebola, I promise you, if that was a disease that killed you on contact, he wouldn't take that chance. He wants to not just live, he wants to stay in power. So at a certain point, there's hypocrisy that goes all the way around. And so I'd like to kind of be honest about both sides of this, okay? The pandemic is real. Let's not lie about that. It's not just the flu, like some people say. The COVID's not just the flu. Is it a flu-like virus? Yes. It's more contagious. It's more severe. And we didn't have a vaccine for it until 2 months ago. So it wasn't just your average flu. If we didn't have a flu vaccine, tons more people would die of the flu. So it wasn't just like a flu. It was a deadly flu that we didn't understand, highly transmissible, with very severe side effects or very severe effects compared to the flu, and no vaccine. So dangerous and deadly and spreading fast. That's true. But unlike the flu, it mostly kills older people and sick people. I mean, the flu kills sick people and it does kill old people. But the flu kills anybody. Flu kills kids. COVID didn't. And unlike the flu, COVID was 60 to 80% asymptomatic, meaning you never even know you had it. The actual flus, there's not a lot of asymptomatic in the typical flu. You got it or you don't have it. COVID, over half, certainly they think now closer to 70, 80% of people who get COVID don't even know they have it. They show zero symptoms, not even just mild symptoms, which also means that the death numbers are really off. There have been 500,000 deaths of COVID in the U.S. There's 34 plus million cases. That comes out to a 1.5% fatality rate, which is 3 times the flu. The flu's about 0.5%, edges between half and just under 1%, closer to half. But in reality, COVID's not 3 times the flu, because we know that if 80% of the people are asymptomatic, tons of people aren't showing up as having COVID who have it. We know they're not getting reported. We know the testing was off in the beginning. We know there were tons of people who probably had it and never got it. So in reality, the mortality rate from COVID, and killed the oldest, sickest people first, the mortality rate from COVID is going to end up being, and I said this a year ago, and I'm not a scientist. But I just thought about it. The death rate's going to end up being close to the flu. Probably a little higher, but it's going to be under 1%, between 0.5% and 1%. It's going to be about the same. And it's not to say people say that's because we stayed in. That's because we did it. Maybe it's all of that, but that's the reality. It is not wiping us off the map. That's also true. Young people don't get severely sick and die for the most part from COVID. The vaccine makes you 100% immune for the most part. They're not sure if there can't be some exceptions, but basically, the Georgetown professor said, you're immune. Masks make sense, or did make sense in a lot of settings, mostly for the last year. But they're not necessary if you're outside and spread out, or maybe even not spread out. And they're certainly not necessary at all if you're vaccinated. Those are facts. So what happens because we won't honor this and look at this? People are becoming insane. I know more stories of people who literally, on both sides, but particularly on the side who bought into the full-on how scary this all is. We've created a society that's going to never be functional for decades again in the way it was. There are people who are afraid to come out of their houses even though they're vaccinated. They are afraid to be around their own family members even though they're vaccinated. They're scared. They're still scared. They're so afraid from what happened and what they were told that they think they're still not safe. And they're not going to think they're safe no matter what they're told. That's what the politicizing has done. It's created literally a divide where one half of the country, not literally in one side, but one half of the population thinks, hey, we're fine and let's not overreact and going about their business. And the other side is literally petrified. Now, there's a chunk in the middle, so it's not fair to say it's literally half and half. But who are a huge number of people who are walking around scared and continue to be scared and think no matter what happens, if I'm vaccinated and you're vaccinated, we still should wear masks. We still should keep our distance. It's still not safe. We're never fully safe. We need another shot in a year. Like, it's literally afraid to live. That's the trauma we've done to people's heads because we politicize this instead of being honest on both sides with the facts, honest with the science on both sides. And it's back to this problem that we can't acknowledge when one side, that both sides, if you want to see it as sides, have valid perspectives. Far from every day. You can bet I'm wearing a mask inside. Who wants to catch someone else's flu, COVID, or their colds? But far from every day, that would be my point. You weren't wearing a mask indoors, before COVID, right? I mean, in Asia, people used to wear masks a lot, and it was originally because of dirty air quality. But do you really want to be going around wearing a mask for the rest of your life because you don't want to catch a cold or a flu, especially when it's probably not going to stop transmission unless somebody's coughing on you or talking right up in your face, right? We know the air goes up and comes down. That's why the CDC recently said 6 feet, 60 feet. Doesn't really matter if you're in an enclosed space. It's going to probably find you indoors. I mean, wear a mask if you want, but my point is we've created a damage to our psyche, and we've hurt people severely in the process. And I think that to me is what's so sad about the whole thing. Let me shift gears though for a second, because to the idea we've created two Americas, two very different worlds, one in not just red and blue, but we've also created a red and blue sense of two worlds. And when it comes to that, we've created a political divide that for many people, we think we're never going to bring it back together. I think we can, and I'll tell you how. Governor Newsom's recall. Governor Newsom is, as many of you know, going to face a recall election. They qualified the number of signatures they needed. They needed 1.5 million. They have over 2 million. And at some point, or probably in the fall, Governor Newsom will go on a recall ballot. There'll be 2 votes on that ballot. One is, do you want to remove Newsom? If you do, who do you want to put in his place? And you can't put him back in his place. It's a significant move. I mean, California is one of the number of states that have recalls. I think they've had about 179 recalls total, attempts in the history since it started in like 100 years. 10 made it to the ballot, 6 succeeded. 5 of those were state officials, 1 like senators, 1 was a governor, Governor Gray Davis, when Schwarzenegger became governor in a recall election. Newsom, the Democratic Party is having an odd response to the Newsom recall. And they had their convention this past weekend. A little graphic here to show you what they're called California Strong. Crafty, can you show the picture of the California Strong? There it is, California Strong. That's their convention. There's the governor masked, and they stole that phrase, by the way. That was a COVID response. But California Strong, we're Democrats. The Democratic Party's response to Newsom being facing a recall has been to essentially go, this is a far right-wing conspiracy move. Rusty Hicks, the state party chair, said it's an attempted coup, literally used the words, an attempted coup led by right-wing conspiracy theorists. The LA Times ran an editorial, said, this is a miscarriage of the state's direct democracy system. They said a small group of conservatives, Trump supporters, QAnon believers, anti-vaxxers, COVID-19 deniers are attempting, essentially attempt by, a right-wing minority to overturn the will of the majority. And that the only reason a recall should happen is for severe cases of malfeasance or incompetence. There's the editorial, Send in the Clowns, the recall circus is returning to California. And And their response has been literally, this is a right-wing coup. This is a distortion of democracy. This is an unfair process. Why? Why is that what they're saying? It's in fact nothing close to that if you want to know the history of it. And in fact, it's not just people on the right who would say this. Jake Tapper did an interview a couple weeks ago with Governor Newsom in which Newsom basically makes this argument. Check it out.
You have people that are part of the lead coalition that started this petition that are avid Proud Boy members. They're part of the 3 Percenters, the right-wing militia group. They are supporters of QAnon conspiracy theorists, white supremacist groups. That's not just that's factual.
Certainly all 2 million Californians who signed this aren't all Trumpsters. I mean, we have interviewed people who were supporters of yours who are now supporting the recall effort. In large part, at least according to anecdotally, the interviews are reporters on the ground have been doing because they think that the measures you took were too harsh, too aggressive.
Bright light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm deeply mindful and I'm deeply respectful to all the anxieties that people have felt over the last year.
Okay, so here's where I'm going with all this. Took me a little while to get my engine up to speed on this, but because I think it's significant to understand some of the things. Monkey Arms, $500 million for the recall. Absolutely. But here's the point, Monkey Arms, and this is where I'm going with this. The recall was started in the early 20th century, so early 1900s, in what was often called the progressive era. Hiram Johnson was the governor of California, and in a fiery inaugural address, he created the recall. The point of the recall, he said, was to give voters power. If you can put them in, you should be able to take them out. When you think they've acted poorly, done something wrong, acted in a way you think is corrupt or simply malfeasance or simply incompetence, you should have the right. Direct democracy is the right to take it back. It's like initiatives. It's like referendums. So yeah, it's going to cost a lot of money. That's the whole point. There's nothing subversive to democracy in a recall move. Or if you don't get enough signatures, it doesn't make it. A lot of people try, they go nowhere. You know, in that same interview, Jake Tapper pointed out there were only 50,000 signatures on that recall petition when it started. It was started by right-wingers. It was started by far right QAnon type people. Absolutely. They had 50,000 signatures. Gavin Newsom went to the French Laundry thing, and in a month they had 500,000 signatures. And Jake Tapper points that out. And I like to say, Jake Tapper, now that Trump's gone, is kind of going back to being normal journalist. He's not all crazy. Now he'll ask both sides tough questions. But you know, 50,000 to 500,000 in a month. And Newsom kept dodging the question when he's asked in that interview, kind of saying, no, you know, yeah, I made a mistake at the French Laundry, but my real mistake was, you know, not having too many. And, you know, Tapper just keeps drilling down on, well, you know, what point do you just take accountability? And he won't. But the point is, people felt at that point, it stopped being a bunch of right wingers. It started being a lot of people going, you know what? You've put us under these restrictions for so long and you're flaunting them in our face. It hit a level of distrust and he still failed to be adequately accountable. He's apologized. That's not the point. He's never gone out and just owned what he did, which would be to say, you know what, you're right. I thought I could do it. We put these things in place because we're trying to keep everybody safe. Their vast rules probably overreached a little. I need to stop. Could never own it, could never eat that. Neither side. It's like Trump. Newsom to me is the Democrats' version of Trump. They're never wrong. They never make a mistake. You know, he's constantly touting how great California is doing, how great it is, how great he's done. It's like, actually, I don't know. You're losing a congressional seat because for the first time in history, people left California in such huge numbers that you lost a seat. Florida picked up a seat. Texas picked up 2. What does that tell you? But that's on the one side. The other side has the same problem. You know, Laura Ingraham had a thing called Red State Trailblazers, a town hall. And she had DeSantis, Governor Abbott from Texas, DeSantis from Florida, the governor of Missouri. She had 4 or 5 governors on, all talking. And same way, like it's just, you know, they all tout their accomplishments. They all tout what they've done and how great it is and how bad the Democrats are and how horrible the Democrats are for what they've done. And Laura Ingraham, just like, you know, Chris Cuomo on the other side's a cheerleader for them. How great of you guys. We're in the free state of Florida. I've acknowledged Florida is compared to California, it's a free state. I like it. I'm a libertarian. I like freedom. I like not being told what to do. I take care of the public health for sure, but you're all being vaccinated. You're all safe. Let me do what I want. But the right's no different in that sense for mainstream politicians. They all brag about their accomplishments. They all talk about everything they've done, and they all point out how evil the other side is. It's all about the evil left if you're on the right. It's all about how bad Democrats are. And if you're a Democrat, it's all about the evil far right, how horrible they are. So you got the woke on the one side, you got the alt-right on the other side, and everybody who's even close to them is by magnet attraction considered part of them. So anyone who voted for Trump is somehow part of that vast right-wing mess of QAnon, racists. And anyone on the left who's at all sympathetic to progressive or, more socialist type ideas is somehow like an extreme left-wing crazy kook. Both extremes exist, but the mainstream politicians vilify both sides at enormous cost to the rest of us. And the truth is, neither DeSantis nor Newsom are the real future faces of the party. A lot of people say DeSantis is the future face of the Republican Party. He's closer. He's closer to the future face of the Republican Party than many people we've seen. He's certainly a prominent voice, and I actually agree with a lot of stuff he's doing. Same way I actually agreed with a number of things Biden's trying to do as well. Biden is certainly not the future of the party. So I don't think Newsom's 100% old school. 100%. He's the old Democratic Party, hands down. Doesn't matter how good looking, young, whatever. He is the old school of the party. Kamala Harris, same thing. She's the old school of the party. Joe Biden, old school, old man, old school. And he's just a placeholder for now for the party. AOC could be considered the new face of the party, but I don't really think she is. And again, on the right, I don't really think DeSantis is really the future face of the party. He's going to be a voice that's going to move out. He's going to be a voice that's going to get a lot of attention and should. He's very strong on a lot of core ideas about freedom, about people having space to do what they want. He's doing some very innovative things. Florida's a prospering state, not just through the pandemic. His approach to taxes, to social services. The new face of the Republican Party is going to be far more attentive to both social needs, to things you might originally have thought of as progressive, to environmental needs, to social policy, to far less discriminatory, far more open to, whether it's LGBTQ stuff, whether it's transgender. It doesn't mean they're going to be like, yeah, it's okay for biological males to compete with biological females. But that's a fair argument to have, but going to be very progressively open toward equal rights, equal quality of life, toward addressing quality of life issues for impoverished communities. You're dealing with the environment, ending homelessness, creating more economic growth for the middle class, the working class, and the poor. You're going to see the new face of the Republican Party become that, or they will go extinct. That will become a new voice in the Republican Party. At the same time, on the left, on the Democratic side, you're going to have to see a new voice. It's not Biden. It's not just offering tons of giant, progressive packages. It's not just about the policies or wanting to provide something for everyone. It's way more than that. The new voice, just like on the Republican side, the new voice has to have a different message, a different way of messaging, a different way of communicating. They have to be authentic. They have to be accountable, which neither side is good at being. They have to be responsible. Both sides, I'll get to that at the end, accountability and responsibility. So we're going to see new voices because the two extremes can't hold. The two stale, crusty parties can't hold. And while some people are cracking through, the AOCs on the left, the Ron DeSantis on the right, at the end of the day, I don't think they're the future. Who do you think is the future? You don't have to know right now, but who do you think is the future voices? A couple examples on the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. I'll tell you a couple who I think are. I think, and by the way, a poll, this last thought, a poll came out, I don't remember who did it, USA, Mara, somebody, that most people are optimistic about the future now that Biden's president. And that's fair. I'm not surprised by that we're climbing out of things, he's popular. But the poll also showed that only 23% of the country feel we're more united since Biden became president. That's not a good number. People don't feel united, and they're getting tired of the division, tired of it being fed, tired of the media feeding it, tired of both parties feeding it. People are tired of division, even as we feed it to some extent ourselves. I think we all can admit we're like, at a certain point, can we just get along? Can we solve some problems? Who are the people who can do that? Here's my two choices. On the side of independent, Matthew McConaughey, he could be either he could be a Republican or a Democrat, depending. He's certainly an independent. Matthew McConaughey is thinking of running for governor of Texas, and we got a little tweet from him of him saying that he's talking about liberals. Some liberals don't see they're being cannibalized by the illiberals. He thinks free speech and both sides of being the political debate are illegitimized by the other side. Dallas Morning News poll. 1 second, I'm going to play you something from him. Dallas Morning News poll showed Matthew McConaughey polled at 45%. He hasn't even announced yet. He's thinking about it. I think he will. 33% went to Abbott, the current governor, who's popular, and 22% went to someone other. And of that, 66% of those polled were Democrats who voted, said that. 44% not of those polled. 66% of Democrats said they would support McConaughey, 44% of independents, and 30% of Republicans. He's described himself as aggressively centric. Here's a little bit of him on Good Morning Britain.
You need liberals. What I don't think we need is the illiberals. And what I don't think that some liberals see is that they're often being cannibalized by the illiberals. You know, there are extremes on both sides. The two extremes illegitimize those two sides, or they exaggerate that side's stance into an irrational state that makes no sense. And
so it's interesting. Obviously, you know, that's a bit, you know, where I'm at. And I think I've probably said before in the show, I met Matthew McConaughey years ago when he was just about to become a big star. He was in a movie that Sandra Bullock was producing, and we were all at Sundance, and we got into politics. And even then, he was pretty much of a centrist. And obviously, I am deeply centric in that same way. But the idea that both sides are illegitimizing each other. Monkey Arms put up a comment, which I want to get to. Why are you talking about people and not policy, Rob? Well, let me answer that. Because policy by itself is meaningless. We think a lot about policy, but we don't live in an age where politicians simply sit behind closed doors and make decisions and implement them on us. We've moved more and more, not just towards a direct democracy, which I'm a fan of, by the way. I think we should be able to vote. I think it's crazy that we've not reached a point where we are, first of all, allowing online voting, by the way. That shows you where I stand on the voting thing. I think we should have a technology where we vote by computers. It's an open source program. You can actually verify accuracy, the whole deal. I'm big on direct democracy. We should be able to vote on things they're doing. Representative democracy was what we had to do because of the era when it started. We can move more towards that. But to the question of why people, not policies, Monkey Arms, because people are who are going to drive the change. It always has. Leaders always have mattered, but they matter more than ever now. The people who are our voices, the people who are out there, the messaging is so powerful. The idea we can't see, we can only see what we're messaged. Our messaging is so powerful that people will believe something even if it's not true, if they're told it enough times. Thus the massive divide in our country, why two sides look at issues completely differently, with selectively picking their facts and dismissing the others. At the end of the day, policy changes matter and policy matters, but people matter even more. Joe Biden will not get his agenda through because he's not the right person to do it. Right message, right time, right messenger. That's always been the rule. He's not the right messenger. And I've said it before, he's going to run into a brick wall in the midterms. The Democrats are going to lose the midterms. I'm predicting that right now. They always do. Every election, the non-incumbent party loses seats. That combined with redistricting, which is going to benefit Republicans, and the fact that there's going to be a pushback against Democrats for a lot of these policies. They're not going to get a lot done, so people are going to be frustrated. Democrats are going to lose control of the House and maybe the Senate in the midterms. So at the end of the day, if Joe Biden wanted to get the changes through he wants, it's not just about he'd have to pare them down. He'd have to become a better messenger. Our messengers in the way they look. And Biden, just like the people on the traditional right, he's not an extremist on the left, can't acknowledge that the other side is valid. He talks about bipartisanship, but he can't acknowledge that his side makes mistakes, that his side screws up, that his side does things wrong, that his side doesn't have all the answers. It has some answers. Tolkien says, let the other side have a voice, come to the table. But at the end of the day, their messaging is, we're going to pass what we want on our terms. We're in control. That's fine. They're not going to get it done. And that's why people, not policies, matter at this point in time, because it's the people who are going to drive everything in the digital era. So you might have, look, you had Trump, who was a good messenger, and he had some good policies. And if you're on the right, you probably think a lot of them. But in many ways, he didn't have a vision at all. I mean, one of my problems with Trump was he didn't have a holistic vision at all. People around him crafted that. Trump was a Democrat 5-6 years ago. He wasn't ever a Republican. Trump wanted power, and some of what he did, I think, was good, but he didn't have a vision. The vision was put around him. We need people with vision, and that vision, they have to be able to sell that vision. And that's the problem with the Newsoms and the Bidens. Now, DeSantis can sell his vision, and he does have one, but he too is still on the side of the evil guys on the other side. Matthew McConaughey's right. It's going to take both sides realizing that delegitimizing each other just creates a giant vacuum, and that people are tired of it, and that they want something else. Thus, McConaughey polling so high against a popular governor in a red state. And McConaughey could be an independent. I think he'll run as a Democrat because he'll pick up a lot of Democrat votes, and he'll have a harder time running as a Republican. But he could run as any one of the three. Okay, on the other side, quickly, my vote for the other side. Andrew Yang, running for New York City mayor. Let me play a video of Andrew Yang, the former presidential candidate. He did a rap video. I just took a little excerpt of it. Here it is.
Andrew Yang, 2021 mayor. Yo, it's only $5. $3.50. Yo, just take it for free. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, yo.
New York, Yang for New York. Time to do the right thing. Tell them other campaigns the Yang Gang has arrived. Oz ran for president cause he saw what's at stake. A human-centered economy is what it'll take. He made the most sense during the whole race. Probably why they cut his mic off at the debates. York, Yang for New York. Time to do the right thing.
Okay, so Jimmy Stock put up a comment. Is that a joke? McConaughey, the actor. Why would any rational person elect an actor? Has he ever managed a company, signed a paycheck? He knows nothing. Good Lord. Thanks, Kraft. You can pull it down. So here's my response to that. Actually, he has managed a company. He's made a lot of money as an entrepreneur. He's also had some failures. But why an actor? Well, one, message matters. Just being an actor alone isn't enough. But one of the most popular presidents, and a Republican president, was Ronald Reagan, who had never run a company. He became a governor, but he became a governor from being a famous actor. And then he went on to become one of the most influential presidents. He did have a philosophical vision. He surrounded himself with smart people, but he was considered the great communicator. Even his opponents, they were like, he is a hard guy to say no to. Lyndon Johnson, master of the Senate, not such a great president, but a true political leader and responsible for the Great Society. If you're on the left, you probably think that was a positive thing. Also never ran a company. Career politician, but knew how to get people on board. Andrew Yang, why Andrew Yang? Because look, first of all, Andrew Yang's big thing is a commitment to universal income, $1,000 a person check. He calls it the freedom dividend. What I like about it is he'd make Amazon and Google pay for it with a value-added tax. Companies that get around paying almost all taxes, if not all taxes, would have to pay for it that way. You could argue whether that makes sense to have a guaranteed income. But he's all about dealing with the tech economy, with how we've created an automated world and how automation is destroying the working class and how we need to fix that. Andrew Yang is leading in New York City against far more established and popular local politicians from across the board. Why is he leading? Because he resonates with people, because he's authentic. He's a good communicator. He has a vision. He's both accountable. He's acknowledged things he says that are stupid, that are wrong. He's learning as he goes. And he wants us to be responsible for what he wants responsibility, but he sees a responsibility of us as a government to take care of those who are falling beneath the cracks or through the cracks or been under the floor, right? So why do these charismatic actor politicians have such a shot, and why am I a fan of them? Because the standard for a good political leader in this country is no longer whether you're the best policy expert. You surround yourself with policy experts. You're surrounded with the smartest minds in the country, and at the state level with the smartest minds in your state. You bring in the resources you need. Your job as a political leader is to have a vision and guide people down it and be able to bring people on board. You're a deal maker. That's not a small task. And in the world we live in the digital age, you have to be able to not only make deals behind closed doors, you got to be able to bring disparate factions together across a public spectrum. You have to be able to truly unite people and sell your message, not just to the people who already buy it, not to the people who are already drinking your Kool-Aid, but to the other side. And often actors are good at that. Now, just because you're an actor doesn't mean anything. You have to be a smart person with a vision and a way to and a vision for how to connect that. But both Andrew Yang and Matthew McConaughey are hyper intelligent, hyper successful people. You know, Governor Schwarzenegger was a good governor of California, although all he'd been before that was a huge movie star. So yes, people matter as much, if not more than policy, because the policy by itself won't get you anywhere. And yes, we're going to see candidates emerge from both parties who are not traditional establishment politicians. There is a pushback. There is a pushback on both sides, especially in the middle, to traditional career class politicians and to the vilifying of the other side. There's a desire, a populist desire on both sides for outsiders with a vision, willing to be accountable for their own mistakes and for who they are, real, authentic, vulnerable, not pretending they're perfect and everything they do is right, and also have a sense of stewardship of how to help all sectors of the economy rise up. Thanks for watching. It's Rob Nelson Live. Hey, I'm Rob.